Right, hello there everybody. We've just seen Arsenal versus Chelsea, and I, like you, was incredibly excited about this game because these are two sides who are really good. One is having a wobble, one is very new to the concept of being good, and you felt like the winner of that match was really going to go on and have an exciting season. And then, of course, naturally, it was a draw. But not to worry, because while football has always been a results business, analysis has mercifully never ever been. So while this was a stalemate, I still thought it was really interesting because it was the tale of two individuals who did something exceptional. Now, speaking of something exceptional, and I may be overselling this ever so slightly, I have launched a Substack. Isn't that fun? We get like hundreds of messages and comments asking, like, what is happening with this player? Why is my team so bad all of a sudden? And we can't do videos on all of them, so I have launched a Substack, which I'm incredibly excited about. It's called 87 Minutes, and you should go and check it out. Right then, to business. This was Arsenal versus Chelsea. These were the two 11s, and Arsenal were finally, more or less, back in the 4-3-3 they haven't been able to play while Martin Odegaard has been injured. They've been in that sort of awkward 4-4-2 thing, which was fine, and they were dominating games, but they weren't really creating as freely as they were. And Chelsea were just in that 4-2-3-1 that they love so much. Now, the thing is, I could stand here and talk all day about 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1. Pretty much all the top teams now all like to defend in a really disciplined mid-block 4-4-2, and the problem with that is that they're really hard to break down. And so what we're seeing a lot in these top Premier League games now is two sides that are undoubtedly really good and full of loads of good players, but are also very disciplined, and both games get a bit, what's the word I want? Muddy. And what that tends to mean is that unless these games suddenly open up because of some goals or a red card or somebody just losing their mind, you tend to get nothing happening through the middle of the pitch, because both teams are just too good at stopping that. Like, this is Arsenal in their mid-block, this is Chelsea in their mid-block, and not really at any point in the match did either side successfully carve the other one open. Now, I might be about to labour this point far too much, right? But take a seat, get yourself a cup of tea. This is Caicedo's pass map for the 90 minutes, and as obviously he gets on the ball, there's a lot going on, but just squint, have a real hard look at this. For any pass that goes forward directly through the middle of the pitch. Like, he hits the channels well enough, there's loads of side to side, but I'm looking here, and there's maybe like one that's 2 or 3 yards, nothing with any incision. And then we look at 𝗕𝗓𝗓, who was in the middle with him, and it's a similar sort of story. Sideways is absolutely fine, but nothing forward through the middle of the pitch. In fact, there's virtually nothing forward at all. Then there's 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, who, yes, he does drift left and right, but he does play as the 10. He does get on the ball in the middle of the pitch. And again, nothing through Arsenal's mid-block. He has to go around, he has to go sideways, he has to go backwards. All right, so that's Chelsea, but what about Arsenal? Well, this is Declan Rice's pass map, who barely passed the ball forward at all in the entire 90 minutes, but when he did was floating out left. He could do nothing in the middle. Now, Thomas Partey, he was a lot more proactive, being the central one in Arsenal's midfield 3, but you can see as well, there's just sort of like a brick wall here for him. Nothing really forward through the middle. And just to round off the whole thing, this is Martin Odegaard again. Not one single pass through the middle of the pitch, because you can't do that because both teams are doing a really good mid-block. May have gone overboard at that point, but hopefully now you get it. But the thing is, this isn't even a criticism of these managers. This is not me calling either team boring, and I'll show you why, right? Because these are the failed passes of all 6 of those players. And you know what, the hell with it. Let's chuck both pairs of centre-backs in there as well. You can see that when they were trying to go vertical really quickly up and down the pitch, look how straight all these lines are, they were losing the ball. So, of course you're not going to do it. Like, that is kind of mad, isn't it? Like, the light blue ones are Chelsea, the dark blue ones are Arsenal, so obviously they're going opposite ways. Like, there aren't any lines that look even remotely like that in the successful passes ones we just looked at. It failed any time they tried it. So then, obviously, when both teams are set up to stop that and are really good at stopping that, it makes for, it's the nicest way to put this, a tough watch. And this is why I said at the very start that this became the story of two players who did something exceptional in this fairly unspectacular sort of setup for a game. And the first was Pedro Neto, who I thought was the best player on the pitch. Now, I'm not going to focus on him too much. His goal was absolutely amazing. He swapped sides, he made a run. Arsenal were very disorganised and allowed him to get in there, but he still had to capitalise on it. But before that, he was pressing onto Ødegaard to force him backwards to stop him playing through the middle of the pitch. He was dropping back onto Saka, which made 𝗕𝗓𝗧𝗏 look like he had a brilliant afternoon, which, in fairness, he did. And every time he got on the ball, he was giving Ben White actual night terrors. So that was a brilliant individual performance. But while Pedro Neto was the best player on the pitch, in my opinion, that is not the same as being the most important. And the most important player on the pitch, in my opinion, was the returning Martin Odegaard. His contributions, as we have already seen, were few, but they were the most significant. You see, what sets the great managers apart from just the good managers is the ability to look at a game that's obviously going to be this even and then make small adjustments that increase your ability to do things while not leaving yourself vulnerable. And aha, Arsenal fans, surprise, I'm actually talking about 𝗬𝗫𝗧𝗏 here, because I thought the way he set Chelsea up in the midfield in particular was very clever. He inverted, well, not really inverted, just swapped him over, Cole Palmer onto the left. Obviously started as a 10 and then drifted out, because naturally there's going to be more space behind Ødegaard, who might not even be fully fit, than there is behind Rice. They then had Malo Gusto invert, you see I can use the word correctly, all the way from right back into this sort of like quasi-other number 10 position. This is his heat map. He was very aggressive at doing that. And then you combine that with Caicedo and Lavia, they were outnumbering Arsenal in the middle and making it much harder for Ødegaard to join in and lead the press. Now, Cole Palmer this season has come in for a bit of criticism for being amazing in certain games against supposedly lesser teams and then turning up in these big fixtures and nobody being able to see him. But in the opening exchanges of this match, he looked really good. In fact, I showed you his pass map before, right? This is all of his contributions in sort of like the first 10 or 15 minutes, right? He was finding that space behind Ødegaard really well. He was dropping out wide and then coming in field. He was getting on the ball in all the kind of areas Cole Palmer wants to get on the ball. And he was helping, as you can see here, to create some dangerous situations. This is why Arsenal miss Ødegaard so much. Not just for his creative ability in and around the box, not just for what he does on the ball, but the way he leads and he adapts things on the pitch in coordination with his manager. And after those first 15 minutes, Ødegaard and Arsenal addressed the Palmer situation. All of a sudden, Arsenal slightly rebalanced their midfield. Declan Rice took a bit more responsibility for pushing up and joining in the press, and Ødegaard instead didn't go and sit on Palmer, but constantly made sure he was in the direct passing lane between whoever had the ball, be it the midfielder or one of the defenders, and Palmer. But you can see it here, he's not going to press the ball, but neither is he actually marking him. He's making sure that he's taking him out the game without necessarily taking him out of the game. And this is actually mad, right? After Arsenal make that change from that point and a half onwards, this is Cole Palmer's entire contribution to the remainder of that half. He gets 2 touches of the ball, and they're both backwards. And this is one of them right here. Oh, look, who is that up his arse? It is Martin Odegaard. Arsenal fixed this on the fly and got a lot better control of the game. The thing is, right, that was pretty much the sum total of Ødegaard's contributions to this game right up until the point the first goal went in. He was quiet. Like, if we overlay his heat map here, if you're an Arsenal fan, you'll see this as just so promising, because he's finally getting back into that right-hand half space where he causes so much damage to opposition teams. It's what they've really missed over those fixtures where they've had disappointing results, where, you know, they've had good territory, they've had good possession, they've been in good positions, but haven't been able to do anything with it because they're missing a player of his quality. He's there, he's back, hooray! But then we overlay his pass map, and similar to pretty much everybody else on this pitch, nothing is really being created here. This is right up until the goal, by the way, so that's not on here. He's not getting anything into the box. He's not getting anybody in behind. There's no sort of cutting edge to it. Until the goal. And that is why he was the most important player on the pitch. Forget about the cross for now. Forget about the goalkeeping. We will talk about that. Just wind that situation back. And who is it deciding on field to push Arsenal further up the pitch to get something? It's Martin Odegaard. He forces that entire team to step up into Chelsea. Then he personally goes and wins that ball back and drives them up the field. They don't know what to do with it, so they give it to him under pressure, where a lesser player would probably lose that ball, but he retains it and he gives it to somebody else who also doesn't know what to do with it, so gives it back to him under pressure, where most players probably lose that ball, but he doesn't. He winds up in this position on the edge of the box with scant few good options. And I'll say that 99% of players, probably, would be immediately thinking, can I lay this off here? Can I roll this player in and maybe they'll put a cross in and maybe we'll get something out of that? But this is what sets Ødegaard apart, right? You, me, absolutely anybody else on this pitch not called Cole Palmer would just want rid of that as quickly as possible. But Ødegaard has that second. He can take a breath. He knows he's okay on it. He can look up and see what's actually around him. And when he does that, what does he see? He sees Saka and Martinelli at the far post in a way better position than simply rolling this ball through. And that in a nutshell is what Arsenal have been missing. Like, they've been good in these games where they haven't got the results. But when you're good and you come up against teams who are up for it, who've got really well-defined styles of play, like Bournemouth, like Newcastle, like Inter, good isn't good enough. And make absolutely no mistake about it, right? Arsenal were getting knout off Chelsea up until this point. Like, they pretty much identified all the best ways to shut them down. 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 was having the single best one-on-one game against Bukayo Saka that I have seen since Lewis Hall 8 days ago. And it meant that this game, which, yes, admittedly did end in a draw, was going absolutely nowhere. Like, don't ask me why I checked these stats, right? But at about 30-35 minutes, it was 50-50 in terms of possession. Both teams had 5 shots on goal. Both teams had 1 shot on target. I'm trying to remember this. Both teams had 7 touches in the opposition box. And both teams had made 119 successful passes. Doesn't get more even than that. And in such a game, the only thing that's ever going to divide two teams like this is either A, a moment of total madness defensively from one side, or B, a moment of brilliance from an attacker, Martin Odegaard, from the other. Now, regulars to this channel will know that I myself am a goalkeeper and I do goalkeeping on occasion, so I'm going to have to talk about Robert Sanchez here. Now, first off, the narrative that goalkeepers should never get beaten at their near post is complete and utter bollocks. It's a complete misnomer. It's just something people who don't understand goalkeeping say. You can very easily get beat at your near post if the shot's good enough. However, that's not what happens here. Robert Sanchez does not know where he's standing. The wider angle's the best one for this, right? Because the position Martinelli is in, Robert Sanchez could very easily completely block off the near post if he was stood in the right position. And then from there, Martinelli's either got to put it through his legs somehow or get some almighty curl around him into the far side. But Robert Sanchez does not stand where he's supposed to. Like, from where Martinelli is standing, Sanchez is probably the exact same width as the goal, so he doesn't need to be giving himself room left or right. Like, this position here, it's almost as if he's trying to stop him putting it out for a goal kick as well. Like, he's got that entire touchline sort of blocked off, but you don't need to do that. Just the far post. I think, honestly, Robert Sanchez thinks he's stood with his right foot more or less on the touchline. And the thing that tells me that is, right, when it goes past that foot, he goes to grab it as if he's expecting it to have gone into the side netting. But then he sort of sees that it's in the net and looks confused. So yes, just to recap, no such thing as shouldn't get beaten at your near post, but also he shouldn't get beaten at his near post in that example. But then, of course, yes, Chelsea do go and equalise. I appreciate I may be making this video sound like it finished 1-0. It didn't. It was a draw, probably a deserved result. A similar bit of brilliance. Neto then floats into the space that Arsenal have left because they're really disorganised from the second phase of the corner. Enzo's obviously a better on-the-ball presence than they were getting with an inverted fullback in that area, and they take advantage of that. Well done, Pedro Neto. Probably man of the match, but Ødegaard is the video because I'm a nerd. Now, I would bet if you are an Arsenal fan, you probably find that a little bit disappointing because you sort of wrestled control of the game and then you got on top and then you got your goal, but you couldn't see it out. But hear me out. If I was an Arsenal fan, and I'm not, by the way, I see people trying to guess in the comments all the time, which is very amusing to me, but if I was an Arsenal fan, I would be very quietly very okay with that result. Yes, 9 points off the top of the table is bad, but in their first 11 games, they have now played last season's entire top 10 6 of which were away from home. 3 games they've had a mad red card, and they've also had loads of just small, niggling, annoying, disrupting injuries. But now you're getting all your big players back. You've got 2 weeks to rest up and get everybody 100%. And the fixtures between now and the end of the year look very, very, very favourable. But yes, obviously Liverpool are off and running and they look absolutely amazing, but they're very new. This is Slot's first season. That could potentially be built on a little bit of sand and they get figured out, or one injury disrupts the whole thing. So I wouldn't be massively concerned that it's them that are 9 points ahead when every other team is exactly where Arsenal are. I'll put it this way, right? I think the run and the luck and the injuries and the officiating that Arsenal have had at the start of the season would have been enough to just completely kill most other teams' title hopes. But they're still, for me, right in the mix with all of this after all that, and things can surely only improve from here. So yeah, I thought Chelsea were really, really good in this game, and they're definitely going to be in the title picture in my opinion, but there was enough here for Arsenal, with Ødegaard somehow doing all those minutes and all that running after like 2 months out, to think you write them off at your peril, my friend. Well, not peril, because nothing bad's going to happen. You'll just look a little bit silly, but nonetheless. Anyway, that is it for this video. If you're a Chelsea fan, sorry, I really did focus on Arsenal on that. You'll get your flowers, you'll get your love at some point. I absolutely love what 𝗫𝗧𝗏 is doing with this team. But Arsenal fans, this kind of one was for you. That's almost English. So please let me know either way what you think in the comments. Who deserves to win this match? Chelsea fans, should you have won? Arsenal fans, should you have won? Neutrals, could you possibly have cared less? You can get me, if you so wish, across all the social medias at 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍, 𝐶LERY. The FourFourTwo socials are in the corner of the video, and we simply adore new subscribers on this channel. If you haven't done so already, click the nice little button. You get treats in your inbox all the time. And as previously mentioned, I have launched a fun little Substack. It's called 87 Minutes. You can go and look for it, and I'm going to be doing loads and loads and loads of fun stuff on that too. Until next time though, I have been 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍. This has been FourFourTwo. This was Chelsea. This was Arsenal. This was Martin Odegaard. Hey, what about him? And I'll see you soon. That was kind of an ending, wasn't it? Bye.